It's interesting how people can speed things up when it's something that they really want to focus on, right? So Chuck Schumer told you a while back in that interview with the New Yorker that his job is to make sure that the left remains pro-Israel. And we are seeing people also on the right move away from Israel. So Chuck Schumer decided to bring this to the floor. It's crazy, guys, that Nick Fuentes needs to be condemned. This was all happening at the same time. You had an Israeli who walked down the halls of Congress and left a threatening message on Rashida Tlaib's door. But Chuck Schumer won't talk about that. He wants to get into the Nick Fuentes situation. So listen to what he says here.
And finally, on anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism in America has reached a dangerous tipping point. Jewish Americans are facing threats, harassment, and violence at levels we have not seen in generations. And as I have said many times in this chamber, anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. Where there's anti-Semitism, there lurks white supremacy and other pernicious forms of hate. Well, 3 days ago, the President of the United States declined to condemn Nick Fuentes' hateful views and defended Tucker Carlson's decision to give Fuentes a platform.
Pause right here, because let me tell you what this is really all about. Okay. So Nick Fuentes doesn't hide who he is or how he feels about people. He'll tell you outright that he is racist. It's not like he's trying to be something that he's not. What I found interesting about this is that I feel as though this is really more about a push for censorship, a push for silencing people. And let me get into what I mean by that. Because here's the thing. We have the KKK in this country. Yes, we still do. We have neo-Nazi organizations in this country. Yep, we do. And through all these years that these groups have been around and still around, Chuck Schumer decides to take the opportunity to go after a podcaster instead of going after organizations, some of which who still have power. Always pay attention to who people go after. One person or institutions and organizations. Everybody need to get ready with what's coming, right? So you don't have to listen to Nick Fuentes. You don't have to watch Nick Fuentes, etc. But I feel like whenever it comes to something that's about anti-Semitism, there always seems to be this sense of urgency to pass legislation and get it done, right? Because one of the first things that was said when I showed this video on Twitter, one of the first things that was said is people were like, where was this sense of urgency for the Black community? Chuck Schumer, again, said his job is to make sure that he keeps the left pro-Israel. So I want to caution people about applauding, deplatforming, and silencing of voices, because it's only a matter of time when it comes around on your side too. I remember when Donald Trump was kicked off of Twitter, he used to platform from Twitter, and a lot of people were cheering like, woo, woo, yeah, he's out of here. Get out of here. And then they started to come for people on the left. Then all of a sudden, left accounts started to get censored. And this is what I'm warning people, because this is where this is going to lead to. You think this is going to stop with Nick Fuentes? Who are they going to try to condemn next? Could be one of your favorite left commentators. You never know what this is coming. A lot of us have been very critical about Israel. So don't think that this just stops with Nick Fuentes. So let's continue.
The president was asked about his thoughts on the interview. He declined to condemn Nick Fuentes. That is disgusting. For Donald Trump to excuse and protect the spread of Nick Fuentes' ideology confirms what many of us have long said. White supremacy and anti-Semitism are taking deep roots, unfortunately, within the Republican Party. Just as we saw from the leaked texts of
Did everybody hear what party he said? Pay attention.
taking deep roots, unfortunately, within the Republican Party.
So here we go, right? So once again, I want to be very clear about something. A lot of people that I talk to, like that I know that are like my friends and stuff like that, they don't even know who Nick Fuentes is. Chuck Schumer, by bringing this forward on the House, the Senate floor there, by bringing this forward, he's actually making Nick Fuentes more popular. So I always find it a little weird when I'm seeing a politician go after a podcaster he's not even on YouTube, who isn't even on YouTube. It gives me a little bit of pause because I feel like they will start with Nick Fuentes and then they'll go after others. Remember, a lot of times the cancel stuff, a lot of times it started with someone on the right and then it made its way over to the left. We saw that again, like I said, when Trump was kicked off Twitter. But Chuck feels as though this is the urgent fight that needs to happen right now. This is more urgent than people having health care. So the guy who sat here and was not willing to stand up to Donald Trump, who caved to Donald Trump twice this year, it seems to be more urgent for him to take down and condemn Nick Fuentes. Does everybody see what's going on in this country? Meanwhile, people losing, not having the access to Obamacare, people, dealing with those subsidies with that particular situation. People don't have food. Americans are struggling economically, and he's focusing on a podcaster. And to that point, as I said before, if the issue is the racist remarks, why hasn't Chuck Schumer taken the power and the resources that he had and try to go after institutions that keep it in place? Let's continue.
Just as we saw from the leaked texts of young Republicans, just as we saw from text messages of administration officials, the Nick Fuentes saga on the right reveals that anti-Semitism and white supremacy have been growing with disturbing currency within the right wing and within the right wing of the Republican Party. But I know this is not true of everyone on the Republican side, especially not for many Republicans in this chamber. Therefore, I will soon lead a resolution here in the Senate rejecting Nick Fuentes and his white supremacist views, condemning Carlson's platforming of hate, and condemning anti-Semitism and white supremacy wherever and whenever it occurs.
So pay attention to that, whatever and whenever it occurs. What do you think that means? That doesn't stop at Tucker Carlson having an interview with Nick Fuentes. That doesn't stop with Donald Trump not condemning Nick Fuentes' interview with Tucker Carlson. This is going to spread. So, like I said, notice what they will do urgently and what they won't do urgently. You got people right now in this country trying to figure out how they're going to be able to pay their bills. You got people right now in this country that have been laid off. Thousands of people have been laid off. Anybody keeping track of the numbers, the layoffs? But Chuck Schumer wants to make this an urgent priority. So you don't have to like Nick Fuentes. You ain't got to agree with Nick Fuentes. Cool. But once they come for him, they will come for others. He is just the first piece on the chessboard. And he's an easier target. After that, Tucker Carlson will probably be next.
In the coming days, I will work to grow support for my resolution so the Senate can take a clear stand against hatred and anti-Semitism. I hope my Republican colleagues will join me in this effort and co-sponsor this resolution. Calling out anti-Semitism should not be a partisan issue. In fact, when we refuse to condemn anti-Semitism, when we stay silent and fail to reject anti-Semitic rhetoric, when we normalize hateful figures spewing disgusting anti-Semitism, that is when anti-Semitism spreads throughout society like a poisonous wildfire. Americans don't want to see that happen, so my resolution will give every senator, every single senator, a chance to make an important stand against hatred. The country must see us unite and fight this awful form.
So where was this sense of urgency, Chuck, for you to bring some type of legislation forward for the anti-Blackness? Where was the sense of urgency? Do you see Chuck Schumer bringing forth any piece of legislation to advocate for Black pregnant women in the healthcare system? I mean, the best, I don't know, Chuck said a couple years ago, best he could do is put on kente cloth and kneel with Nancy Pelosi. So pay attention to who they prioritize and who they don't. A lot of people see this, they just don't want to admit it. Even some, like on the progressive side, don't want to admit this either. But the reality is this. Notice who he chose to prioritize. He said anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred. But it was just other forms of hatred was at the end. That wasn't the focus of this, and that's not the focus of this. Chuck looking out for Chuck. Chuck looking out for Israel, because as he said, that's his job. So I honestly think this is going to backfire. I think this is not going to work the way that Chuck Schumer believes it is going to, because the thing is, they're like, well, he's getting too much traction, so let's try to find a way to silence him. And this is just where they'll continue to grow with this. They'll try to silence you. Now, this is what Nick Fuentes said recently about the populist left and the populist right coming together. And this is another thing I think they don't like. I don't think it's just the rhetoric, the racist rhetoric. I don't think it's just that. I think it's a couple of things, but I think it's also this.
This is why I said the other night, why don't we have populist Republicans and populist Democrats that just solve problems? Just solve problems for Americans. And by the way, I am willing to compromise with the left, 100%. I'll work with anybody. I saw the track AIPAC people. It's some progressive woman and some progressive gay guy. I'd work with them on shutting down AIPAC in a second, in a heartbeat.
See? Miss Pamela said Chuck needs a project. People were coming for his seat. He does need a project. Does need a project. But they don't want this to happen either. It's not just about the racism. It's also that. Because the last thing that people like Chuck and others don't want to see, they do not want to see people on the left and the right come together over the Israel issue. Because if that happens, Israel is done. If evangelicals start coming together, like evangelicals on the right start coming together with people on the left over that issue, Israel is done. So Chuck said that the reason why he didn't endorse Zohran Mamdani is because he is considered to be a guardian for Israel. So pay attention to that when you see the policies that he pushes and the sense of urgency that he has when he pushes these policies. This seems to be an urgent thing for Chuck. I mean, for years, and not even just the George Floyd thing, but for years, we have been complaining within the Black community. We have been complaining about unarmed Black men being killed by the police for years. I didn't see Chuck rush down to the Senate floor to say, we have got to stop this rise and increase of shooting against unarmed Black men. Not with that sense of urgency. When George Floyd, the whole George Floyd thing happened, Chuck said, best I could do, put on kente cloth and kneel with Nancy Pelosi. Guardian of Israel is his name.
Same goes for Anna Kaspari and Cenk Uygur. They were in favor of democratic populism. They want to deliver healthcare. They want to deliver education. I would work with them in a second.
See, they don't like this. That's what they don't like. I'm telling you guys, they don't want us to come together. This is a freaking nightmare for people like Chuck Schumer and Ted Cruz. Holy crap. We got some people on the right and some people on the left agreeing on the Israel issue.
Ron Mamdani all day. That's why I said we need to rethink and realign our politics based on what actually matters and what matters to us. We have to drop the wokeness, arguably on both sides. We have to drop the wokeness on the left, which is anti-white and obsessed with immigration, basically throwing the borders open. They have to get rid of the tone policing and language policing. And on the right, we can work together with the left. Maybe we have to let go of some of the cruelty and abuse directed at some of the marginalized communities on their side. It's true. There are marginal people. What else would you call a racial minority?
But Nick, that would have to obviously start with Nick Fuentes because you participated in a lot of that. So that is the reality. But the thing is, I'm trying to warn people about this because I saw people cheering Chuck Schumer on, and I'm just telling you, it starts with Nick Fuentes and then he comes after someone else on the left, or the Republican Party will do it. It can go back and forth. They bounce around, but we know this censorship game by now. Listen, I watched a number of people lose their shows on RT. I watch people get kicked off YouTube. There are a number of people that were in this space that are no longer in this space, and that's unfortunate. I've watched people get deplatformed. I've watched people get kicked off Twitter and X and all these types of things because they said the truth. And so I think we all need to be very clear about something here. You may not like Nick Fuentes. You may not like what he says, but if you cheer on them trying to condemn and remove someone that you don't like, it's only a matter of time before they come after someone you do like. So keep that in mind. Another thing that he said that I want to bring up as well. I'm not going to play this whole video because it's very long. He was asked about Kamala Harris, would things have been better if Kamala was in office? So listen to this.
Percent of issues. So since Trump's a shill, do you think Kamala would have been better? If Vance isn't the answer, is Newsom or Pritzker better for 28?
Gosh.
Do you think MTG or Massey be an upgrade over Trump? You call out problems, but never say who you think would actually do better.
Okay, you stop watching my show. Go watch something else. You're literally too stupid. How do you watch this show night after night? And the question is, but wouldn't Kamala have been worse? How much more can we explain it? That mindset is how they keep us controlled. We are at war with Iran, but people think we won. That's the problem. There are no mass deportations. We are at war in the Middle East. We are at war in Ukraine, but Trump has legitimized it. Don't you understand? But, for you just can't think on those levels like that. For you, it's like, oh, well, the economy's better. Okay, but structurally, it's the same. The debt is $38 trillion. The deficit is $2 trillion.
I don't even see the economy better, to be honest with you, because like I said, and we were just doing the grocery shopping today, the prices are still increasing where I live. I don't know where everybody else is living, but the prices are still increasing where I am. So I don't even see the economy as being better.
The government is insolvent. Do you think that Trump's economy being a little better really changes anything? It doesn't. It doesn't change anything at all. And Trump is giving weapons to Ukraine. Yeah, he tried to win Russia over. It didn't work. Trump bombed Iran. Trump banned anti-Semites from coming into America. And people say, but Kamala would have been worse. Here's the difference. If Kamala won, half the country would not accept the results of the election. Half the country would believe the government is illegitimate. As the economy faltered and the wars got worse, people would turn on the government. Her approval rating would be like 25%. And that might have propelled actual change. What Trump does, even though it's slightly better, is he releases the pressure. He re-legitimizes the government, re-legitimizes the institutions, and all that does is it buys them more maneuverability.
It buys them more time. So this part is important, right? Because he was someone who did support Donald Trump during his first term, but then moved away from that. And I think what a lot of the alarm is, I don't think it's just the racist language. I do not believe that, guys. I've been doing this long enough to know better. I don't think it's just that. I think another part of this is the fact that he has been able to move some people on the right, especially some of the younger people on the right, away from the traditional neocon interests of the Republican Party. That's a reality. And anyone who doesn't want to admit that, you're kidding yourself. That is a reality that Nick Fuentes has been able to move some of those people away from the traditional neocon Republican Party and even move some of them away from Donald Trump. And now he's starting to talk about the economic issues more, talking about this. Well, listen, these are the problems and these things need to be fixed. But he's telling you that Donald Trump is also a part of the problem. So Chuck Schumer, I don't know what the hell he's trying to do. Maybe trying to like buy himself a little bit more time because people want him out of there. I don't know. But in his guardianship for Israel, Chuck Schumer is basically saying, okay, let me come out there and let's get everybody to try to condemn Nick Fuentes. And the goal is to shut him down. And like I said, when it comes to free speech, you ain't got to like him. You don't have to agree with him. But shutting him down means shutting down other voices as well. Whether it's Tucker, whether it's Candace, like I said, they probably come after him next because he's the one who gave him the interview. And it's really funny because Nick Fuentes went on a number of shows. He went on Dave Smith's show. He went on Candace Owens' show. Does anybody find it strange that politicians only seem to call it out when he went on Tucker Carlson's show? What's different? Because I heard him say similar things on Dave Smith's show and Candace Owens' show. Well, what's the issue this time? So I feel as though they feel he's getting too much traction and they want to, let's nip a bud in that. Let's silence him. Let's censor him. Okay, who else do we have to come after? And watch it. This whole thing about, well, of course, it's not anti-Semitic to criticize Israel government. Give it a minute. Give it a minute or two before they say it is. So I do not approve of people being deplatformed, period. And I stand by that. And Chuck Schumer, what he is doing, I consider that to be dangerous. And in a sense, like I said, you do not have to listen to Nick Fuentes. But this is no different than when the ADL came after TikTok. We don't like what's being said. Shut it down. Shut it down. And then it's only a matter of time before they come after the left and do the same thing. Especially when it comes to the Israel issue. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party kind of work together. Chuck Schumer caved to Donald Trump twice. Nancy Pelosi told you a year ago she wanted a strong Republican Party. Do you think that Nancy Pelosi feels as though Nick Fuentes, his growth and the amount of influence that he has, do you think she feels though that is strengthening the Republican Party? No, she would probably say it's not. Why do the Democrats want a strong Republican Party? You should be worrying about your own. All of this to maintain the status quo and, of course, to protect Israel. That's what it's really about. Nick Fuentes has said a number of things. But out of all the things that Nick Fuentes said, if you notice when Chuck Schumer went to go read that piece of legislation, he was only focused on one particular group. He wasn't focused on all the rest of us. I didn't see Chuck Schumer say anything when he was reading that piece. I didn't see Chuck Schumer say anything about, things that are said about Black people, the anti-Blackness. No. So that right there should tell you what it is. It's a Uni-party. One ring to rule them all. So be very careful with this one, guys. Like I said, I get it. People don't like Nick Fuentes. They don't like what he said. I get that. But be very careful about cheering on censorship and deplatforming. Be careful about that. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.